What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet, and I am black up in your face again with some more pro black commentary. We got some very sad news over the last few days, and that is that the actor Carl Weathers passed away in his sleep, and I thought it would be very appropriate for me to do just a little bit of a send off for Carl Weathers and just to talk about some of my memories of him as an actor and also the image that he represented as he showcased black masculinity in pop culture. So, if you never knew who Carl Weathers was, he was most famous for playing the character Apollo Creed in the Rocky films. And he also, if you ever spent any time with your grandparents, you know that he was on a very popular TV show called In the Heat of the Night. He played the police chief Hampton Forbes towards the later seasons of that show. He was also in probably one of the manliest films of all time. That is the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That movie is just dripping with testosterone to the point where they literally have the manliest handshake of all time that Carl Weathers is involved in. And there's a scene where literally every main cast character in that movie is just literally just shooting guns at a forest and just chopping down the forest. Uh, what else? He was also in the action movie Action Jackson that came out during the 80s. That film was also starring Vanity. And I believe there was a young Sharon Stone in that movie as well. It's hard for me to remember. It's been a while since I watched it. It's been like maybe 5 or 6 years since I watched Action Jackson. And I don't own it on DVD. It's hard to find. Like every time I've looked for it, it's always like overpriced, like because it's such a rare commodity to get a hold of. But I've watched it online a couple of times, so that's how I've seen it recently. But that was a classic action movie, and for those who love those over the top, tough guy 80s action movies, it's definitely one. It's in the top 10. It's one of the ones you need to see because it's an exceptional movie. It's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. Don't expect any type of logic. Don't expect any type of, you know, real deep plot or dialogue. It's all ridiculousness, but it's fun to watch. It's one of those movies you can put on and kind of like turn your brain off and just have a good time and laugh and watch it. Watch it. Okay. Um, Going forward, I know that Carl Weathers had worked on a lot of different shows like the Mandalorian that's on Disney Plus, and he actually directed a couple of those episodes. So I'm glad that he got the chance to not just work in front of the camera, but he also got to work behind the camera and work on the production side of things as well. And his career goes so far back. Like he started out as a football player playing for the Raiders, and then he got into acting and he had like a lot of bit parts on TV and in films. I remember when he was in the film Friday Foster, he played the assassin that was trying to kill Pam Grier's character in that movie. I remember that very well because that was one of my favorite black exploitation era films because it's actually based on a comic strip. Friday Foster was a popular comic strip that used to be in the newspapers, and that has a very the film version of it has a very star-studded cast. It has a lot of great black actors in that film. Everyone from Pam Grier, Carl Weathers, Yaphet Kotto, Eartha Kitt's in that film. So it's just like a who's who of black actors at the time that are in that film, and that's one of the reasons I love it as well. And like I said, he had so many different like just plain just TV appearances where he'd pop up. But Carl Weathers was a very accomplished actor in his time, and he's someone that I always appreciated in my family. Like, we used to watch a lot of movies, and he was one of those actors that we could look at and say, that's a strong masculine black man there. Like my sister was like infatuated with him for a time. She thought he was just like the manliest, sexiest man she had ever seen. And I appreciate that because, you know, having a black man actually be, a good showcase of black masculinity on screen, I always felt that was important. It was important for me to see that as a young black boy and growing up and seeing, the men around me kind of portrayed on screen. Because like the way he looked, like that style, like his hairstyle and his facial hair, and even like the suits he would wear when he was at like movie premieres or whatever. That's like how my dad dressed at the time, how my stepdad dressed. So I got to see the men that I was around and the men that I was growing up with. I got to see that type of man on screen. Like that's what I was used to seeing all the time. So seeing Carl Weathers portray that type of character on screen was a good thing to see. A black man that's always in good shape, good looking, and well dressed, and just never playing the fool for anybody, and always being at his best, right? So, I know there's some controversial thoughts when it comes to the Rocky films, the fact that his character dies or gets killed by the big Russian character in part 4. And I think even he as an actor didn't like that. He didn't like the fact that they were killing off his character. In one good way, it did lead to the Creed films, the Creed trilogy, which I actually do very much enjoy with Michael B. Jordan. But, I can understand some people being frustrated with the Apollo Creed character being killed off, right? I can also understand some people, and I've talked about this before, where, how Apollo Creed kind of became Rocky's mentor. I know there's a lot to be said about that mindset of, in order to beat a black opponent, the white people have to go to black people and be trained by another black person to learn how to fight like a black person to win that fight. There's a lot to be said about that, and it almost gets into the magical Negro territory where you have a character that's almost there just to serve the white protagonist. I would say Apollo Creed doesn't necessarily fit into that because he still has his own personality and his own life outside of that. His whole life is not wrapped up in the character of Rocky. He has his own personality outside of that. You know what I mean? So, and that's why the character was so much larger than life, to the fact that it could have a whole movie series based off of his progeny. That's how big the character was, that it exists outside of the Rocky character. You see what I'm saying? Like, I guess you can say that the Rocky character kind of instigated it, but it's still that Apollo Creed character is so larger than life, it lives on outside of the Rocky franchise. And that's crazy. Even though the character is dead, that character still lives on through other films. So that's very interesting, and that's a testament to the performance of Carl Weathers, and that's something I can say that I also appreciate about him, because anybody could have taken that role and done a terrible job at it and just been like a one-off character. But the fact that his character kept coming back, and the fact that his character has kind of outlived Rocky Balboa and in the legacy of the son character, that's big to me. And I think that speaks to the acting skills of Carl Weathers. From what I understand, he passed away in his sleep. He always seemed to be a guy that was in like really good shape, and like he always was talking about like health and fitness and stuff like that. So it's tough to see that. I mean, he was up there in age. He's almost 80 years old, but even so, he still seemed like he was in good shape, and it's a shame that he passed away. And when I heard that he passed away and how he passed away, that sort of got me, because I started thinking about his family's reaction to that. Because I know, like, that's how my stepfather passed away. He died in his sleep as well. And the day before, he was just doing his normal routine. My stepdad was just literally, he would always work at night, so he would come home, make breakfast for everybody, and everyone would go to school or go to work, and then he would water his plants, and then he'd go take a nap and rest up for, while everyone else was out. He was just doing that. And he did the same thing he's been doing every day for years. And when he went to take his nap, he just never woke up. And it was actually my little nephew who actually found him, passed away. And he was trying to wake him up, saying, "Pop, pop, it's time to get up." And, he wasn't responding. And my sister came in there to see what was going on, saying, like, why isn't he answering, my son? And then come to find out it's because he had passed away. So, when I heard the story about Carl Weathers, that's how it sort of hit me. It brought back memories of that, of losing my own stepfather in almost a very similar fashion. And even though he wasn't biologically related to me, I can understand, the pain is still there because he's someone I did grow up with. And, like I said, I'm sure Carl Weathers' family is going through very similar pain in that regard. And, my condolences to them. And I hope that, if nothing else, maybe they'll find some solace or some comfort in the fact that Carl Weathers meant a lot to a lot of people. I know to them he's just dad, or he's just grandpop, or he's just, your husband. But he meant a lot to a lot of people. And if nothing else, you maybe have some comfort in knowing that he touched a lot of lives with his performances, and also not only that, but the way he acted off camera. Because from what I've seen, everyone who knew him always has nothing but good things to say about him, and that's a good testament to someone's character. When everyone who knows you, everyone who's met you, no one has anything bad to say about you. They always feel bad because you're gone, because you were such a nice person to them at the time. He was one of those people that always made other people feel special, or made other people feel like they were important. And I can appreciate a personality like that. I think that's a good way to be, as far as putting good karma out there. You never want to down anybody or hurt anybody on your way up. It's always good to be helpful and be more of someone who uplifts other people and not just down them or hurt them. And I think that's another great testament to Carl Weathers' character, that everyone seems to be very sad at his passing, and can acknowledge that he was a really good man outside of the characters that he played. So, for those who have memories of Carl Weathers, or any of his films, or any of the TV shows that he was on, or maybe if you actually got a chance to meet him, you can put that in the comments section and let me know what you think of Carl Weathers. And, if you have, just any funny memories of watching his films, you could also share that in the comments section. And, that's going to be my little send-off for Carl Weathers. Sorry you're gone, brother. And there'll probably never be another like you, because you came at a very interesting time, and you were definitely one of the greats. Anyway, folks, this is Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.